Hello there, everybody, and welcome back in to the latest edition of the College Basketball Coast to Coast recap show for day 2 in earnest of the 2024 NCAA men's basketball tournament. I am a little groggy, but I'm thrilled to be here. I'm the somewhat competent, somewhat rested host, TJ Rives. Jason Powers is my wingman. He keeps answering the text message, the bat signal to come on these shows, and I thank him for that. Good to have you. As we do this live on Friday night, 14 games are in the books. We'll say this a couple of times. 2 more results are still outstanding. We have our eyes on Utah State and TCU battling in the Midwest Regional. The winner will play Purdue. That's the last game of the night on the floor in Indianapolis. Purdue won earlier easily this evening over Grambling. Had no problem in the second half. So the winner of Aggies Froggies will get that game. We'll keep you up to date on that game. Obviously, if you're listening to us after the fact, later on Saturday morning, etc., podcast form, or all of our social media platforms, you know that result. You also know the result in the West Regional of the 12 seed versus 5 seed game. That's Grand Canyon and St. Mary's. And Jason, that game probably is not going to be over before we leave the airwaves because they've only gone to halftime and they're about to start the second half. And frankly, you and I aren't going to stay up and on this show for 90 more minutes to get that result and see what happens. So everybody will know that result and who's playing Alabama coming on Sunday after Alabama put a C note on Charleston. That's in the West Regional. So
By the way, they might not get to a C note combined in that game.
Yes, for St. Mary's and Grand Canyon in that game. That's very combined. True. So in any event, good to have you. 14 games in the books. By the way, by means of promotion, thank you for finding us on all the platforms, CBB Coast to Coast, on Twitter, College Basketball Coast to Coast YouTube page, on Facebook, podcast form, wherever you get podcasts, look for College Basketball Coast to Coast to hear the replay of the show. And the TuneIn live streaming channel has got listeners finding us and engaging on TuneIn for free. College Basketball Coast to Coast is the live streaming channel. We're on there. We will be live from the Final Four on that channel as well. We did live games, including the Mountain West title game and the win by New Mexico over San Diego State on that channel. Find us all over the place. Just search for College Basketball Coast to Coast, and we will come up. So, Jason, 14 games are in the books. We've seen the shocking upset of Yale defeating Auburn, the SEC tournament champions. Bye-bye. Yale got them. We have seen James Madison tonight, the Sun Belt Conference tournament champs, put it on Wisconsin, really led the game pretty much the entire way and double figures all the way in the second half. All right. Then the big boys like UConn and Purdue and Marquette, Houston, they all flexed their muscle. All right. So your thoughts on what we've seen go final here, some thoughts on all this.
Yeah, just some more drama. I know we'll probably get into the Auburn game here in a little bit. And obviously we started off the day with a Final Four team from last year, the Darlings FAU get knocked out in overtime by Northwestern. A very questionable last possession of the game of regulation for FAU with zero urgency to try to get a shot and give Langboard and Boo Buie and Chris Collins credit. Langboard was on fire for Northwestern in the second half in overtime, and Boo Buie did his thing, and Northwestern played really well. Give them credit. They played really well. They got a bad loose call with a flagrant foul, which kind of turned that game at the end of regulation a little bit. And but FAU out in the dusty May to wherever chatter starts tomorrow if you're down in Boca Raton.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, we were looking for that Florida Atlantic UConn matchup that we did get in the title game. And again, Florida Atlantic brought almost all their players back. John L. Davis, Elijah Martin, the big man Golden, the Russian in the middle. And yet they could not get by Northwestern today. They faltered in the American Conference over and over again. They faltered last Saturday losing to Temple, blowing a lead and losing to Temple, and then they lost that game in overtime. So Northwestern moves on to play UConn coming on Sunday. We're going to hear from one of the UConn heroes. Our colleague Ari Russell was inside the Barclays Center throughout the day and the night. He's not sleeping there tonight. I did confirm that. He went back home, but he was there for probably the better part of about 10 hours. He was there post-game aftermath with UConn's Tristan Newton. We'll hear from him in a few moments. Ari also talked with Jeremy Roach of Duke as they won tonight. Jason, let's pick it up right there. Duke had some trouble in the first half shaking Vermont. but they went ahead and put the game away, even without Kyle Filipowski doing very much. Duke moves through.
Yep.
Thoughts on what we saw at the Barclays Center, just real quick, in terms of the finals?
No, very interesting. It's going to be a James Madison Duke second round matchup. The Dukes versus Duke, and it'll be interesting to see how Duke handles the quickness and the up temp. I know Duke wants to play a little more up tempo than they got to play tonight, but Filipowski has to be a factor come Sunday because James Madison's got some dudes. They got some guys that can play. Duke obviously has, we know McCain, we know Jeremy Roach, but Filipowski's got to be a player here Sunday. You're not going to beat good teams with he only scoring 3 points on one field goal attempt.
For Duke, they hadn't won a game in a couple of weeks. They lost the regular season finale at home to North Carolina. They lost right away in the first round of the ACC tournament to NC State, who eventually won the automatic bid. So it had been a while to taste victory. John Shire had the big exhale, as you can imagine. And again, he's got a lot of experience. National championship as a player, national championship as an assistant with Mike Krzyzewski. It's now his program in year 2. Let's see what happens there.
Them. You think they can do some damage. I know you think they're kind of.
And I got to say, I didn't get a whole lot right in my bracket. Okay, I got some things right. But I had a Duke James Madison second round matchup all the way, and JMU looked good again tonight. And I favor Duke in that game, and I think most people would, to be in the Sweet 16 and in the way of Houston. Houston demolished Longwood tonight. Not a game at all. Jamal Shed had like 10 points or 11 points and 9 assists. They were up 30 in the first half. No contest there whatsoever. So Houston's at the top half of that bracket. Marquette, all the way back on Friday afternoon, was having problems with Western Kentucky late in the first half. But, man, did they turn it on in the second half. Tyler Kolek did play, the injured guard, one of the best players in the Big East, has the oblique injury that he's been recovering from for 2 weeks. He played well, had like 18 points, 12 assists. They needed it. They came back and beat Western Kentucky. So now Marquette will play Colorado, who won controversially. Jason, get into both. Get into the Marquette win and the controversy with the Colorado last-second shot against Florida in a very high-scoring game.
Yeah, Marquette, obviously, they were down 7 at the half. They were in trouble. They were down 7 to Western Kentucky. Give them credit. They shot the lights out in the second half. I watched most of that second half, and they made everything the first 10 minutes of that game, and they really went on a big run and put that game away. So give Marquette credit in that Florida-Colorado game. A track meet. It was 45-45 at the half. Both teams scored 55 in the second half. And actually, Colorado scored 57. But controversial finish there. Colorado had about a 10-point lead with about 4 minutes to go. Walter Clayton for Florida went on a tear the last 4 minutes of the game. He had a deep 3 to tie the game at 100. Colorado gets the last possession, 6-7 seconds left. Controversial. They blew a ton of whistles in that game. The referees. There were a ton of fouls. And to me, it was a clear push-off by, I think it was De Silva with the game. Was it De Silva who hit the game winner?
Simpson. KJ Simpson got the game winner, yes.
I mean, he drives baseline. A clear as day push-off with the off arm, which you saw Clayton backpedal 2 steps because of it, which gave him the room to go up for the jumper. Hits every part of the rim. And then, every part of the rim and falls in for the game-winning bucket. I didn't lie. To me, if you're the referees, you're calling all these fouls. If you call an offensive foul there, that doesn't put Florida at the line. It just gives Florida the ball. It's not like you're determining the game if you call a foul there.
And by the way, if you make that call, no one's going to disagree with that call.
Right.
I mean, not even KJ Simpson can disagree with the forearm. But they get the win. Colorado in the first 4 did defeat Boise State on Wednesday night. They turn around on Friday night, come into Indianapolis, and win that game. So give Tad Boyle's team some credit for being able to do that there in a high-scoring game.
In a critical young coaching error by Todd Golden. They're down about 10 with about 5-6 minutes left in the game, and he gets a technical foul down 10, which, if you get a technical foul in the first half or early second half, not the biggest deal. But when you're down 10 with 5 minutes to go, you can't be getting a technical foul on a call. 2 free throws that Colorado converted. Guess how much Florida lost by?
Yep. Bitter pill. Again, Walter Clayton was fabulous, but they weren't able to get it done. And again, going over some of the other results, San Diego State, you and I saw them last week lose in the Mountain West title game. Valiant, but New Mexico was just better. So San Diego State beat UAB. There was a 12-5 matchup. A lot of people loved UAB to maybe win the game. Alabama-Birmingham, the conference tournament champs of the American Conference. But San Diego State out-executed them in the final 2 or 3 minutes. Low-scoring, grind-it game. They controlled the tempo for the most part. And Brian Dutcher and the way that they win, it is effective, and they got that done. Now, conversely, I was on this many. It was too public. We're on New Mexico. I had New Mexico in the Sweet 16 in every bracket. I did not understand why they're an 11 seed and Clemson's a 6 seed. New Mexico shot terribly in Memphis, unlike what we saw in Las Vegas for the 4 wins in 4 nights. Clemson shot well with Gerard and PJ Hall. They went on a 21-2 run in the first half. Got up 15 plus and never really threatened. How shocked were you that New Mexico was that bad after what we saw in Las Vegas? It just didn't translate today in the game with Clemson.
It was bad. They got beat down. I thought the guards would play better. You wonder, again, not everybody handles it the same. How did 4 games in 4 days affect those guys? You then have to turn around and travel a couple of days later to Memphis, which is, it's not a terrible trip, but it's not the shortest trip in the world. How did all that affect them? And give Clemson credit. We are all dissing Clemson. They came out and put a beat down on New Mexico the first 10 minutes of that game, and the game was basically over the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, New Mexico began the game 1 of 10 from 3-point range. They seemed like they made every 3-pointer Friday and Saturday in their 2 wins over Colorado State and over San Diego State. And how about this stat? Just one more stat. They played 4 games in 4 days to win the tournament, where they only trailed for 7 total minutes in 4 full games. They were behind from the 2-minute mark against Clemson all the way until the end. The last 38 minutes against Clemson, it was a total role reversal. So Clemson now will play against Baylor, who bombed Colgate earlier in the day. Again, there were some blowout wins. Baylor looked fantastic, wiping out Colgate. That game is coming on Sunday. San Diego State now gets to meet Yale. Again, just give me a quick thought on Bruce Pearl's team. They're up 10. I mean, this has been a story at the end of this season in conference tournament play, conference tournament championship games, and now NCAA tournament games. Nevada yesterday, and then Auburn tonight's up double figures late in the game and blew the lead.
And early in that game, and not that this would have necessarily had a factor, the guy that had gotten into a tussle last weekend, Chad Baker-Mazzaro, gets ejected in the first 5 or 6 minutes of that game. He had been a problem last week in the SEC tournament. Probably should have got ejected
elbow
last week.
Running down the court. Blatant elbow, flagrant 2, thrown out of the game. And so he was unavailable the rest of the game, but I thought it was the right call. I agree.
No, I totally agree. But I'm saying just the he's been a problem for them for the last couple of weeks with issues and all that. And Auburn's almost like Auburn just kept taking them for granted, thinking Yale was going to go away. And that Poulakidis, the Greek kid, I mean, he was incredible. And how
about James Jones, the coach? How about James Jones, the coach, has been there 25 years at Yale. They did win a tournament game in 2016, and here they are 8 years later with James Jones at the helm, all new players. Obviously.
Auburn missed a ton of free throws in the last 3 minutes.
And it can be your undoing, and it was their undoing in that one. Again,
and the sick part is they had, 2 chances on the last possession to tie and or win the game. They had a decent look at the end there to tie or win the game.
They kept missing free throws and getting the rebound or having the ball bounce out of bounds and get the ball back, and Auburn couldn't take advantage, and they're done. They're gone.
And
out of
Jaden Ledee, the guy we saw last week for San Diego State, he was a major problem for UAB. I mean, this guy in person looks like an NFL tight end or defensive end. I mean, he is thick, and he's a ball player. 32 points today against my Blazers. Just too much beef on the inside. They didn't get much else from anybody else, to be honest with you. He scored probably 45, almost 50% of the points. He's going to be a problem for Yale as well. But, again, to grind. Yale likes to play slow. San Diego State likes to play slow. So this will be another grinded out
under
game.
over set at 99 points for that game unofficially for San Diego State and Yale. Again, it's college basketball coast to coast, our live show. I do see some live audience here with us in the late night hours, Friday night into Saturday. We're going to preview the 8 games coming on Saturday later on today as Jason and I do this live in the Eastern time zone. We'll go over that in a little bit. Our buddy Vince Ferraro will be here to talk Tennessee, Texas. Vince is on the morning show on 99.1 The Sports Animal in Knoxville, Tennessee, the Tennessee Vols flagship station. He'll talk Texas, Tennessee with us in a little bit. I want to go back to post-game aftermath.
Can I give you a quick
update, please? Quick update
Grand
as we do this
Canyon
live.
has jumped out. They're up 10 with 13 minutes to go on St. Mary's, and Utah State's up 16 late, so they're going to win.
Wow.
But Grand Canyon up a dozen now with 13 minutes to go.
And keep an eye on the Grand Canyon coach, Bryce Drew, who is now in the NCAA tournament for the 3rd time with Grand Canyon, trying to get a win here over St. Mary's in a 12-5 game. He may be on the radar for a big-time coaching hire. Was previously at Vanderbilt for 1 season. The new Vanderbilt AD fired him after 1 season. He's been in the NCAA tournament 3 times since then. Jerry Stackhouse is now fired as the Vanderbilt coach that replaced him. Sometimes the grass isn't always greener. And again, you will know those finals as you're hearing us Saturday, especially podcast aftermath, the tune-in streaming show. We don't know those results. We may not be on the air for the end of those results coming up. Again, our guy, Ari Russell, on the scene. Love his insight based in the New York, New Jersey area. He was in the Barclays Center. Again, UConn blasting Stetson today. Stetson's first NCAA tournament berth as a Division I program in over 50 years of playing Division I basketball. It didn't go so well against the defending national champs. UConn wiped them out. Donovan Clingan with a big game with 18 points. Also, Tristan Newton, who was a hero last year in Houston in the Final Four with big shots. He had 14 points. He had 3 made three-pointers. Here is Ari Russell after the game with Tristan Newton talking post-game about the UConn win and more. Let's see if we can't hear that right now on college basketball coast to coast.
So, Tristan, first off, heck of a win. Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
Just talk about the how you guys handle pressure. Number 1 seed overall, again, 16 team. Still, it's a lot of pressure. How do you guys mentally handle that pressure?
To us, we don't feel like it's pressure. We feel like we're the better team, and we don't need to do anything special that we've done all year. Just play our game that we've been playing every single day throughout the, every game and every day at practice. We play the same way, so it really wasn't pressure. It's just going out there and execute and playing how we play.
Now, if you look at the stat sheets every day, I mean, it just seems like everybody contributes across the board. You got rebounds and assists. Like, how does that translate as far as, like, you guys do any comparisons at all, or is it just like everyone has their role? You see rebounds, assists, everybody is contributing. Talk about that for a second.
Nobody wants to go out there. It's not about one person on the team. If somebody has an off day, we have somebody that steps up, and that keeps us safe from any mistakes and off nights, because we don't feel like 7-8 guys can have an off night, knock on wood, wherever that is. But we feel like our defense and rebound, that's really it. And then, offense will come with that, and everybody's unselfish. So with defense and rebound, we'll be fine, and the offense will come itself.
And just finally talk about the culture of this program. It just seems like it's running into this direction of this championship mindset. Again, survive and advance. But just talk about that culture and what that means for this team this year.
Yeah, Dre Drag, when I first came here, he showed the blueprint and what we need to do to, be successful here. And the freshmen and the transfers, they've all come along and they've seen the work that we put in, the standard that we put on, and that we live by. So, they've lived up and exceeded that standard, and that's what gets us to good spots.
That's great. Well, congratulations. Good luck.
Again, big win for UConn today. They will now play Northwestern in the next round. Newton, again, one of the heroes. They've got Caravan, another one of the shooters as well. A lot of credit to Danny Hurley and his team. They look the part right now. I know it's only one of 6 steps to win the national title, one of 4 steps to get back to the Final Four. But one more thought on UConn, Jason, before we move on.
They got a heck of a draw to get to the Elite 8. I mean, you got Northwestern, then you either got San Diego State or Yale. That's a pretty good draw to get to the Elite Eight. I with Auburn out, that section of their draw, that was the game people thought they could maybe get. Connecticut was Auburn, but that's a pretty good draw to the Elite Eight.
And again, Iowa State and Illinois, you know this, are at the bottom of the draw as the 2 and the 3 seeds. Who knows which? Both, neither gets through to the Elite Eight. We will find out. But you play a tournament. You play who's right in front of you. Like if you're Duke, you're playing James Madison. If you are NC State, you're licking your chops. You get a shot at Oakland. If you're Oakland, you get a shot at NC State. Yep. You're not playing Texas Tech. If you're Oakland, you're not playing Kentucky. If you're NC State. So very interesting. It is a tournament. We love that part. Now in the night session, Ari Russell still busy. Jason Powers, and after the Duke win, Jeremy Roach, one of their veteran guards, spoke with Ari about the victory. Vermont again gave them some problems in the first half. They pulled away in the second half. Let's go to that conversation right now. Ari on scene at the Barclays Center with Jeremy Roach of Duke.
With Jeremy Roach. First off, that team wouldn't go away. Just talk about kind of fighting them off. They were really resilient, and you guys really kept it going and came through the win.
They're a good team. They come from a winning culture. I mean, they were here to compete. I mean, it's not like they laid down and back down just because we're Duke. I mean, they're here to compete. That's what they do. We just kind of wanted to be us, get back in that win column, get our confidence back. So we did that today, and just got to keep it going and be ready for Sunday.
How much of your experience at this point really help with the rest of the team, because you've been through a lot of these games?
I mean, I can share my experiences with everybody on the roster. I mean, I've been through everything, good or bad. So I share my experiences with them and let them learn from it. So
a win like this in the first round, just getting to the next one. I mean, it's obviously survive and advance, right? But just how important is it to get that first win? And
the first one's always the hardest win. I mean, now you got the momentum. Now you kind of know. The court, I mean, the rims and all that stuff. So it's always good to get that first win and turn on your belt. So,
well, good luck in the next round and congratulations.
Well, and again, it was a little tough to hear, but Ari was saying to him, and he said, yeah, it's always good to get the first one. They talked about the culture at Duke. Again, this is a team that took a couple of body blows, boxing metaphor, with the loss to North Carolina on senior night, final regular season game, and then a loss right away in the ACC tournament. Jason, that hadn't happened since the late 1980s or the mid-1980s. None of these guys were born the last time that Duke lost. I believe it was mid-1990s. It's been 30 years since they've lost the first game of the ACC tournament. That's incredible. So they've been stewing for a while. They got the win. Again, James Madison put it on Wisconsin tonight, so James Madison is now the opponent. And an interesting stat line for Kyle Filipowski, the big man, tonight. You want to elaborate a little more on that?
3 points, one shot. Ain't much else to elaborate. I mean, he was good defensively.
He had 13 rebounds. He had 3 blocks. He had 2 steals. He took 1 shot in the game, and they won the game. And this is an all-ACC caliber player, one of their better players.
Yep.
I think if you're John Shire, you got mixed emotions. You don't like to see that. But then again, maybe you do like to see that you won with that kind of a stat line. So, again,
James Madison has a very active big man. Bickerstaff's grandson, Bernie Bickerstaff, the famous NBA coach, JB Bickerstaff, now the Cavalier coach. His nephew is the center for James Madison. Yep. He's pretty active. Had a good game tonight, and they're going to give Duke some problems with their quickness and their depth.
No doubt about that. So again, Duke gets that win. And we're going over everything here from Thursday for a couple of more moments, and then we're going to move to a conversation for Saturday and all the action that we're going to see. There are 8 games that are coming on Saturday, so stand by for that here in just a few moments.
How impressed were you with Alabama's taking care of Charleston? A lot of people thought Charleston was a very live underdog today. I was impressed with the way Alabama played.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give them credit. We were probably inspired watching UAB having lost and Auburn, in-state rivals, having also lost on the same floor in Spokane.
The Alabama
Lord,
Invitational. The Alabama Invitational.
the fire, yeah, true, out in Spokane. The firepower was definitely there for this matchup. So
Mark Sears played really well at the point.
Yeah, and they were up over 90 points with still like 5 minutes left in the game.
Yeah.
And what was further interesting from that one was they were up by like 25 with like 3 minutes left, and Charleston scored like 18 points in the last 3 minutes to kind of make it look a little more close and respectable than what it was. Alabama definitely's got firepower, and it looks like we are not going to have the result before we leave, but it looks like it's going to be Alabama and Grand Canyon, the 12 beating the 5, unless St. Mary's puts the big comeback on. That looks like what that result is going to be. So give credit where it's due on that front. Again, you are watching us, seeing us on the College Basketball Coast to Coast platforms, YouTube, Twitter. We're also on Facebook. You're hearing us maybe after the fact on TuneIn or on the College Basketball Coast to Coast podcast feed, wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify. Come see the video show as we're going to be doing this in the recap mode. The male models that are here doing all of this. And we got our colleagues with us. We're going to hear from Vince Ferrara coming up in just a few moments about the Tennessee game. Anything else here striking you before we go over Saturday in the preview mode? Anything else?
Again, I was, was impressed with how Northwestern handled FAU. Was not very impressed with FAU. A lot of turnovers tonight. Wisconsin turned the ball over a ton of times. FAU was very, very shaky with the ball and free throw shooting at the end. And you mentioned the comebacks. Auburn blows the big lead. Nevada blows the big lead. That's the beauty of this tournament, man. One bad 6 or 7 minute span, and you're in big trouble.
Yep, and can go home just that easily. But give credit where it is due, because there were plenty of teams. Like Purdue was struggling for a while in the first half of the game, but with Grambling, but they played 2 halves. Thank you for doing this. And sorry about that. I was able to load it, and we'll go back to Vince Ferrara here in just a second.
Here's a good stat about the Purdue game.
Yeah, go ahead.
First time in over 30 years since Joe Smith at Maryland, the venerable Joe Smith at Maryland back in the day, for a guy to have 30 points and 20 rebounds in a game. Zach Edey tonight.
He was tremendous. 30-20 night for him. They made some big 3-point shots, and it's going to be Purdue and Utah State in the Sunday matchup of the 1 against the 8 for that. All right, so speaking of looking ahead, let's do that real quick. We started to hear the interview there with Vince Ferrara of the Knoxville Sports Radio Station. Little tease. Let's do it. Tennessee and Texas coming up Saturday night in Charlotte in that same Midwest bracket. Let's hear from Vince Ferrara. This is a little while ago that Vince was with us earlier in the evening, part of the Vol Network, the morning show in Knoxville. Rick Barnes against his old team. I wanted to ask Vince about that and more subjects. Let's do that now. And so it will be in prime time in Charlotte, even though it's a Midwest bracket game for Tennessee and Rick Barnes' old team, Texas. Let's begin right there. How much play and attention has that gotten since the Thursday results Friday on your station, in and around the market, heading to Saturday and Saturday night, that it's Barnes going against his old team?
Well, it's got more play in Charlotte, because if this doesn't tell you what it means to people, I don't know what will. The very first question in the post game last night was about Texas. They just blew out St. Peter's and won their first round game. The first question was about Texas. Let's just ignore the game we just played and ask about Texas. So, and the reason for that is because there were plenty of Texas media there. Of course, they played in the earlier game. Having all those other teams there, I think, adds to the storyline from the outside. Are Tennessee fans, are they playing up Rick Barnes playing Texas? I mean, they're aware of it. They know it's interesting. They're more worried about whether this team is going to win rather than Rick Barnes playing Texas. They got into the Zakai Ziegler storyline with St. Peter's. His younger brother was on that team. That they got into. Rick Barnes, they want him to win more so than just worried about him playing Texas.
Onto the court. Let's look at a matchup. Obviously, we all know about Dalton Connect. I want to talk about the other guys that are going to be so important. Adu is starting to become a factor in the post. Talk about Adu's performance. They had a very, very emphatic win, obviously in round one. Talk about Adu's development. He's coming. You're going to face Texas with Dessou and some other big guys to contend with. Just talk about the other guys other than Connect that you really need to play well.
Yeah, Jason, you hit it, because that game, the way they played there, first of all, they haven't shot like that since the Auburn game when Connect just went berserk and outscored Auburn down the stretch for them to win that game. And that's because everybody shot well in that game, 50.9% from the floor and 64% in the first half. They shot 21 in the SEC tournament against Mississippi State, and they shot 64 in this game in the first half. Adu was a big part of that because they got a lot of dunks, alley-oops, guys cutting to the basket and getting easy buckets. That's when they're at their best, is when everybody's contributing, when they're going in the post. Adu had a big size advantage, and he was aggressive, asking for the ball, getting in the right position, attacking the basket instead of just settling for those jump shots, which he can make some of those. But you got to be a threat in all areas. They had a big size advantage, so he played great for Tennessee, 15 points and six rebounds. But just a great performance by everybody. But to me, he is one of the most important non-Dalton Connect players on this team. They need Ziegler. They need their bench. They need a little something from Vescovi and James. Finally, Vescovi had some shots fall. He had 23 points in his prior 7 games combined. And so he was absolutely frigid. Good for him to see some shots fall. And then Josiah Jordan-James is a threat at the elbow when he's taking twos. And I thought he played overall better too. Got a lot of guys playing time, but this team is about how everyone else performs to where they don't have to put too much on Dalton Connect's shoulders.
Again, as we're hanging out here on college basketball coast to coast, it's not only the Friday night recap, but we're looking ahead to the Saturday night Midwest regional game. It is in Charlotte. We got to keep all this straight between Tennessee, the 2 seed, Texas, the 7 seed. Vince Ferrara hanging with us. We love Vince. Tampa brother from another mother hanging with us on college basketball coast to coast, part of the Vol Network, part of the morning show on the flagship station, 99.1 FM, the Sports Animal. You got to be proud because question 2 sort of reference Connect. Your answer sort of reference Connect. I'm going directly now with the Dalton Connect question is question 3. It was not the first 2 questions. It's question 3. I think everybody wants to know, are we going to see the guy that we saw most of the year in the biggest games, but there's concern that he disappeared in the Mississippi State game. So I guess how concerned should a Vol fan be that Connect doesn't show up large in this one? And are the Vols going to have problems if he does not show up large?
Well, it depends on what everybody else does. I don't have that concern. He showed on an even bigger stage in that first round game that he was up for it. And look, he had team high 23 points, and it's like he wasn't. It's almost like he wasn't even the guy that people are used to seeing. It was a little bit quieter 23 because he didn't have to force it. He didn't have to force anything. Jack up a late shot clock 3 or go 1-on-4 because no one else it can put the ball in the basket. That's when you see him not be able, where it looks like he's not coming through, is because when other guys aren't holding their own, but when they are, then he's a threat, and then he's still drawing the defense, and he's opening things up for everybody else, and they're working together, especially when they get something in the paint and driving to the basket. So to me, Dalton Connect, yes, there might be a time, there probably will be, there'll be a time where he'll need to take over, whether it's into half, into game, or if things aren't going well for them and they need a burst of points. I'm not worried about it because really that Mississippi State game was everybody pressing and nothing was there for them, including him. So he was not alone. I don't think the stage is too big for him. I think he will come up big if they need him, especially at the end of a ball game when he can create. And that's something that Tennessee teams under Rick Barnes have not had in the past. A guy that can get his own shot and make something happen, especially if other guys are holding their own like they did in that first round game. I think you'll see him be plenty ready for the stage.
Last one for me, Vince. Talk about Rick Barnes. Obviously, there's lots talked about his lack of success in the NCAA tournament, getting deep in the tournament. What have been his strengths as a coach, and what are his weaknesses as a coach, especially in these high pressure moments? Obviously, it starts tomorrow. Everybody knew they were going to expected him fully to win round one, but now we're getting to the big boy part of the tournament. What has been his strengths as a head coach over course of time, out of bounds plays, things like that? Maybe what are some things that maybe he struggled in when Tennessee has struggled, maybe through losing streaks or in big moments?
Well, you hit on one of them in out of bounds plays, especially underneath the opponent's basket. I mean, they're good as it gets, including getting easy baskets for Dalton Connect or open shots for Connect. They're really good. And the actions that he runs with his offense, with his motion offense, man, when everybody is moving without the basketball and everybody is locked in and they have a dynamic scorer like Connect, it's really pretty. I mean, Andrea Carter on ESPN College Game Day was showing some examples of the actions they'll run. They'll run 6 to 8 actions sometimes on one half court offensive set and be able to get a really good look. And it's not just for Connect, but for sometimes for other guys with their screens and double screens. And they do so much. And the pick and roll, they're excellent at, as good as anyone in college basketball. Also, he develops players. I mean, just so many guys get better, including Connect, but Adu has come a long way. Everybody has improved on this roster. Even guys that have smaller roles have gotten better. So that's something that's a strength of Rick Barnes. As far as the weakness, I think when they don't play well, they look tight to me. Like sometimes either guys are worried about maybe coming out of the game if they make a mistake, or they're so locked into having to do their assignment in their motion offense that they're not able to play free like you see some teams in the NCAA tournament. And that's another little concern for me, is there's chaos in the NCAA tournament. You have to be able to prosper and excel in broken plays. And Tennessee has not always been very good at that. Now, Connect gives you a better chance at that, but if they're not the first team to a loose ball and if they're not hitting their shots, that can be something else that can trip them up. And I'll say one other little thing is the free throw shooting, not elite, not the worst in the SEC, but one that kind of slowly went down just a little bit. So if they get into a free throw game, especially when, with tight whistles in the NCAA tournament from time to time, that would be another thing. Kind of worry about it just a little bit with that free throw line. But they do have plenty of the goods. Just what you get from them from game to game is still a little up in the air.
Yeah, ask Auburn, as we have already said, about what happens at the end of games in March, and you can be bye-bye for that game in Spokane where they could not make free throws, including in the final 30 seconds, 1 minute, and they're gone. It can be that vital. Vince Ferrara, tremendous job with us. 99.1, the Sports Animal, the Vol Network. You hear him weekday mornings. We always love your insight. If Tennessee gets a win, we will be doing this. I hope that we are talking to you more as all of this unfolds, with the Vols playing Texas, second round coming Saturday night. Vince, thank you for hopping on college basketball coast to coast on the Friday night recap / Saturday preview. Thank you, sir.
Always enjoyed. You guys are the best, and maybe we'll talk from Detroit if Tennessee's in the Sweet 16.
There you go.
Good stuff with Vince joining us just a little earlier in the evening, talking Tennessee and Texas. As we said, Oregon and Creighton is the other matchup. Jason, as we joke, and we'll just go ahead and look ahead briefly here to the 8 games on Saturday. Oregon, the 11 seed, Dana Altman, the coach. I mean, a week ago, they were not in the NCAA tournament. They won the semifinal game in the Pac-12 tournament in Vegas. We were out in Vegas. and they got it done against Arizona, or else they're in the NIT. They then the next night had to get it done against Colorado, or they're in the NIT. They're instead in the NCAA tournament. They win an opening round game with South Carolina. Another SEC team goes bye-bye. In fact, the SEC's 1-5. The lone win is Tennessee. So Creighton and Oregon's coach, Dana Altman, used to be the Creighton coach. So we have same symmetry. Right. Barnes against his old team, one part of the puzzle. The other part of the puzzle is Oregon and Creighton, and it's Dana Altman against his old school, Jason.
And then you got in the first round, you had Couisnard, who was a former South Carolina player, scored 40 against his old team in the first round. So Oregon's playing well. They got a big man, the kid Dante in the middle, who will match up with Kalkbrenner. You got the kid Couisnard, who had a great game. And I know, obviously, we know Creighton's got some shooters with Shireman and Ashworth, and then Trey Alexander. So I think it's gonna be a very entertaining game. I would favor Creighton a little bit here, but still could be. I mean, again, no, would not be a stunner if Oregon won the game, but I think Creighton will figure out a way to get through.
And again, on the game times for that, the Tennessee-Texas game is the first game up on the floor in Charlotte. The Creighton-Oregon game, catering to the West, is not going to start until almost 9:45, give or take Eastern time, 6:45 Pacific time. Nighttime stuff, prime time in the West, late night in the East for those two games. All right, on the rest of the Saturday slate, Arizona and Dayton will start things, as Jason and I are doing this again, in about 11 and a half hours in Salt Lake City, where it will only be when they play that game. It is nuts.
10:45.
It will only be 10:45 a.m. in Salt Lake for Arizona and Dayton. Arizona looking to make their way to the Sweet 16 under Tommy Lloyd. Remember, they lost to the 15 seed Princeton last year. Then right after that is Gonzaga and Damage Kansas. Very interesting. Spot in the Sweet 16 on the line there in that one. Any quick thoughts on those two games, Jason Powers? Anything at all?
I think Arizona will get through. Obviously, we know the comeback Dayton made the other day, down 17 in Nevada. I think Arizona will get through that game. I think Gonzaga is going to knock out Kansas. I think the depth of Kansas is going to be a problem. I think Gonzaga has enough guys to get it done. You got Watson, you got Nemhard, you got the EK kid in the middle. Again, Dickinson's going to be a load for Gonzaga to deal with, but I think they'll be able to figure out a way to get through, and I like Gonzaga there to get to the Sweet 16.
North Carolina, Michigan State will be up next in Charlotte. That is the game that is on the floor before the Tennessee game with Texas. Carolina, the number 1 seed. Michigan State looked fantastic in the opening game with Mississippi State. Tyson Walker made some big shots early on in that game to set the tone. Carolina loaded, though, with Armando Bacot in the middle.
What's the crowd ratio in that building going to be? 80-20? 80-20?
Probably at least that. It might even be like 90-10 for North Carolina against Michigan State. By the way, Iowa State and Washington State will play in Omaha. That game is coming. Let me look at my start time at just after 5 local time, 6 Eastern time. Iowa State, the 2 seed, hammering South Dakota State. Meantime, Washington State was impressive down the stretch with Drake, outplayed Drake, and Washington State won their first tournament game in 16 years by winning that game. So that game is coming up. Then the bracket buster game will be happening from Pittsburgh with the Oakland Grizzlies, the 14 seed, against NC State, the 11 seed. We didn't talk a lot about NC State last night after their win over Texas Tech. What a great job for Kevin Keats' team to keep rolling after the 5 wins in 5 nights in the ACC tournament. Unlike New Mexico winning the 4 games in 4 nights that couldn't handle it in the opening round with Clemson, NC State had no problem. They turned right around and won their opening round game in an upset over Texas Tech. Now somebody out of Oakland and NC State's in the Sweet 16, Jason.
And for you, I know you covered this team in person. Is Trey Townsend going to be able to handle DJ Burns, that girth? I mean, that is some big fella there for NC State. Obviously, we now know about Golke, so you know NC State's going to be keyed in on him from the 3-point line. Can Oakland get this done a second time?
I think you got to take a look at them and say they've got a real puncher's chance here with Greg Kampe, a veteran coach. They play that zone defense. Let's see. We know NC State scouting report will be get on Golke and do not leave him. What did I see? That on his shot attempts, he only dribbled the ball 3 times on like 14 or 15 shot attempts. It was catch and release over and over and over again. Let's see if NC State tries to correct that in the matchup that is coming on Saturday night in Pittsburgh.
And for the folks that didn't hear us last night, Golke has shot 8 2-point attempts all year. 8. Every other shot's been a 3.
Like 93% of his other attempts have been 3-point shots. So that's all this guy does. Made 10 of them the other night. Let's see if it continues. The magic for Oakland and a Horizon League team to try to get into the Sweet 16. I mentioned the Oregon-Creighton game. It's the second game on the floor in Pittsburgh. I think I misspoke earlier. It's not in Charlotte. Oregon and Creighton. And the only other game we haven't talked about, Duquesne, the upstarts, the 11 seed. Again, they were not in the tournament last weekend until they won the Atlantic 10 tournament, beating Virginia Commonwealth. They turned right around and were very impressive against BYU. They are long. They're athletic. For Keith Dambrot's team, LeBron James's high school coach is the Duquesne coach. And now Illinois with Terrence Shannon and company, they're trying to lick their chops against an 11 seed to move on to the Sweet 16, but Duquesne is not going to go quietly, my friend, in Omaha, Nebraska. Real quick.
It's going to be defense versus offense. Illinois wants to get up and down. Terrence Shannon, Coleman Hawkins, those guys can score. And Duquesne's going to try to keep this game in the 50s and 60s. And I don't think Duquesne has enough firepower. But again, Dambrot's retiring as well. The coach there at Duquesne is retiring at the end of this run. So he, a little extra emotion there for those guys. And I think Illinois will be too much for them. Big Ten conference champions. Shannon's an elite NBA player. I think it'll be a little too much there for Duquesne.
All right, we got to get out of here on the college basketball coast-to-coast platforms. By the way, one more reminder here that we're brought to you in part by TicketSmarter, the TicketSmarter mobile app. If you're trying to get into any of these games, any of these different locales, Charlotte, Pittsburgh, Salt Lake City, etc., use the TicketSmarter mobile app. Best prices on the secondary market. Plus, you'll take $20 off your order of $300 or more by using our promo code COAST20. Again, your purchase safe and secure. It's easy to utilize. Great pricing, secondary market. We love it with TicketSmarter and the TicketSmarter mobile app. Again, whether you're in Salt Lake City, whether you're in Charlotte, whether you're in Pittsburgh, any of these opening round
Sunday, Spokane on Sunday.
Opening round sites, check it out. TicketSmarter mobile app, and our promo code is COAST20 to save $20 off of an order of $300 or more. Again, by means of recap, one more recap of the games tonight. Utah State did win in the 8-9 game in the Midwest bracket. They will play Purdue. Utah State, the regular season champs of the Mountain West, which put 6 teams in the tournament. They won impressively. Again, give them credit because they lost right away to New Mexico in the Mountain West tournament as the top seed. And they lost right away in the semifinal to San Diego State after having a big lead. They bounced back. They win the 8-9 game. Now they got to play Purdue in a home away from home situation in Indianapolis. James Madison again has won late tonight over Wisconsin. A lot of people had that in the 12-5 game. They were the better team. They were flat out the better team over Wisconsin. And so now James Madison will play Duke. And again, late stages, Grand Canyon leading St. Mary's with under 4 minutes to play. You will know that result after we have left the live show here on College Basketball Coast to Coast. The winner there will play Alabama in the West Regional. That's the last piece to the Sunday puzzle of 8 games, either Grand Canyon or St. Mary's. Grand Canyon, the champions of the Western Athletic Conference. They played well this whole game. St. Mary's, the champs of the WCC in the regular season, and the tournament beat Gonzaga in the championship game. St. Mary's has been on the ropes the whole game. There's still some time left. Again, you'll know that final piece as that will be on Sunday. Mr. Powers, I think we've done all the damage we can do for another edition of the College Basketball Coast to Coast live program here tonight. Thanks to Ari Russell with the post-game interviews in the Duke locker room and the UConn locker room at the Barclays Center. Thanks to Vince Ferrara talking Tennessee and Texas with us for the Saturday night game. Anything else in closing, Jason Powers?
Last comment. I know seedings has always been a big issue, and people look at seedings. If you really are objective, you follow college basketball, there is little difference between a 5 and a 12 seed. Five through 12, the margin of difference between those teams is so much smaller than it was 15 years ago. It's incredible.
No doubt. Everybody's got players, and that's what this tournament's all about. Yale's got players. They won tonight. James Madison's got players. They won tonight. Oakland University that beat Kentucky demonstrated we've got players. Duquesne the same way out of Pittsburgh. Grand Canyon tonight out of the Phoenix area. Everybody's got players, folks. That's what we've learned the last 10 plus years of college basketball, including the transfer portal. So, and it's fun because this tournament belongs to those guys. It belongs to the Utah States. It belongs to the teams that you don't know as much about while they're making a move, making a run.
That you never see on Fox and ESPN.
Yeah, not in the big games anyway. By the way, we haven't mentioned Texas Tech blasted Nebraska tonight. I'm sorry, Texas A&M blasted Nebraska tonight. No. Texas A&M will be the Houston opponent. Old Southwest Conference game. Another one of those second-round coincidences that they just put in the way for Houston and Texas A&M as programs to be playing each other on Sunday. Let's see what happens in that. Jason, great stuff. Thank you as always. Follow him at JPO Sports. Also, the Powers on Sports podcast. If you're only hearing us, come find us and see us on the College Basketball Coast to Coast YouTube page, the Twitter page, also on Facebook. Jason, we'll do this again off the weekend here, Saturday night, Sunday night as well, with all the recap mode. Thank you, my friend.
Anytime.
All right, and we thank you for watching us or for hearing us on TuneIn on the streaming channel, podcast platform. Come find the live video shows as well as we're recapping and taking a look at everything going on with this 2024 NCAA men's basketball tournament. We're down now to 32 teams Saturday and Sunday. Much more to come. Thank you for being with us on College Basketball Coast to Coast.